Yeah, I like it. It's pretty easy for us.
Logan, enjoy. And let's make sure these are on now.
Thank you.
There you go.
Horrible.
You're forgetting.
Right.
There you
Not used
go.
to an actual microphone.
Yeah.
Normally I'm loud enough. All right, so Jackie already gave me a little bit of an introduction, but for everyone that doesn't know Logan, do you just want to introduce yourself, and then I'll give everyone the real introduction on you.
Yeah, sure. My name is Logan Kilpatrick from Chicago originally. Today I work at Google DeepMind, leading our AI developer product, Google AI Studio, the Gemini API. It's how developers interact with and build with Gemini, which is our large foundation model. Before this, I was developer relations at OpenAI, joined when it was a small startup, got to see that dramatically change. Before that, I was at another AI startup and started my career as a software engineer and machine learning engineer.
Yeah, that was very like resume by the book. I'll say this. So I've been lucky enough, through my little podcast to talk to a lot of smart people in AI, from CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies to great startup founders. And Logan is by far one of the smartest people I've ever talked to when it comes to anything generative AI. So that's why I'm like, Logan, give everyone the bullet points and I'll let everyone know the real information out there, since you won't brag on yourself. But I thought for today's chat, we would just kind of go through kind of a past, present, and future of AI and how it's impacting work. So you kind of already talked about your background, working in OpenAI, kind of in the earlier days, right? So I think some of your earlier work has maybe led us to where we are today, and with your colleagues there. But talk about even how has work changed. And I know that's a big thing, right? But how has work changed for a lot of our, marketing, professionals in the room? They've probably already seen it a lot. But how has work changed from, let's say, 2020, when OpenAI released, GPT openly in the world? I think it was the end of 2020, to today. How has work changed?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot to dive into. I think so. The sort of really quick clip notes that I'll give, and then we should go in whatever direction you think makes the most sense. If you look back to like 2020, what the AI products of that era were doing, it was like Copy AI and Jasper AI. And if folks don't know, they're like less popular now because there's a zillion AI tools. But at the time, those were basically the only two successful users of language models at like large production scale. And it's actually how I first started using AI tools. Right before I joined OpenAI, I used Jasper AI, which was, if anyone has used it, it's like AI copywriting to do like marketing stuff. You can like put in a product description, it would like generate a bunch of stuff. So even back then, like that was 2020, the only success, like literally the only two successful companies that were building on OpenAI at the time. And it was really GPT-4 that unlocked like the wide, large scale, like mass across every ecosystem adoption of AI. And it was because the model actually got good enough at doing it. And I think since then, it's like everything has gone up for grabs, which I think is the challenging thing about answering this question, is like everything has fundamentally changed. But at the same level, like life feels and looks very similar to the way that it was 4 years ago. With the exception that there's like super intelligent tools and systems that can like actually go and do work for you. I think the biggest discrepancy is just like the level of product that's built around them. Like I think one of the takeaways from the last 2 years has been like the models are actually really good. And like there's all this narrative externally about like, oh, AI is getting so much better, yada, yada, yada. And if you're a user of AI tools, you sort of sometimes, and I feel this way as well as a user of AI tools, you sort of sit around and you're like, oh, this thing's actually not that helpful to me. And a lot of that is because like the products just haven't caught up. Like the models can do this magic. They can spin gold for you. You just need to actually have a product experience that like solves whatever the problem is that you're actually trying to solve. And I think there's a lot of like great marketing sort of products out there that do a lot of, like I think the team at HubSpot has done a lot of stuff. There's a ton of other folks who are pushing that frontier.
It's funny you bring up like specifically Jasper and Copy AI, right? Because that was even my first experience. I think it was the day or the week they launched. I have a very small marketing agency here in Chicago, and at first, as someone that I was a journalist previously. And I did okay at the journalism thing. And then after, me and my team had used these two tools for long enough, I'm like, wait, once you figure out how these work, and you can kind of, improve your quote unquote prompt engineering, which I don't think it was a thing back in 2020 for the masses, right? I'm like, this is really good.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically, I don't talk about this a lot, but, at the time, my little company, it was the biggest it had ever been. There were 7 of us. We had our best month ever, and we're sitting around, and we finally came to some breakthroughs in Jasper, I think it was, doing some work for one of our clients. And at that point, I remember going home and talking to my wife, and I'm like, I think I have to shut this company down because this is a big part of what we're doing as a small marketing and advertising agency, right? We're writing, Google Ads headlines, we're writing copy, right? We're doing all of these things, and it was a very weird feeling, right? Did you have any, similar feelings, right, as you're using the product? And then you obviously went on to work, but was there ever, a moment that you had where you're like, wait, this really changes, how humans might be working in the future?
Yeah, it wasn't that Jasper moment for me. I think partially because back to this thread of the tools and the models just weren't good enough. I think it was you could kind of squint your eyes and it's writing English, but it's not that good.
Yeah.
So I think it was honestly for me personally, as a developer, it's been more on the watching this whole current moment of vibe coding and all that stuff explode, which if folks aren't following, the models have become exceptionally good at writing code. And now even as someone who isn't a developer, you can ask the model to go build you an app or something like that. And the model will just literally do the whole thing for you, and it just works. And I think that's blown my mind. I think more so than any of the moments that have come before. And this is within the last 3 months that the models have finally gotten good enough, and the systems and the tools have finally gotten good enough to enable people to do this.
Yeah, I think I heard you talk on a podcast. Is your mom coding?
Yeah, my
Right?
mom does code. And she started coding pre-AI stuff, so she did it the hard way.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but I think she'll do more coding now that she has AI tools to help her.
Yeah. So, okay. So we talked a little bit about the early days, and there's obviously been a lot of developments, right? Since, GPT was released, and then ChatGPT, and then just about every other big company in the world, shortly followed suit. So let's talk a little bit about today. What would you say with generative AI? What are the biggest both challenges and opportunities? Specifically, knowing we have a room full of, marketing and advertising professionals.
Yeah, I think the edge right now is just figuring out where these tools fit into your life and how to use them. I think the tools are already good enough today. There's an interesting angle of this that I think about all the time as someone who works at Google, and Google has lots of tools that do a lot of stuff. But actually, it's very interesting to see the frontier of AI product experiences are being built by a bunch of startups out in the ecosystem. Google is building cool stuff and lots of exciting workflows, but that's at the billion user scale, and that's oftentimes not the frontier product experience. There's a lot of really, really cool frontier product experiences, which if you're a student or you're trying to build a company or something like that, or you have an existing company, you get to use all those out of the box. You're not constrained by any existing system unless you're working at a big company. And I think that's actually awesome because most of the best tools right now are all of those things. I think the ones that I'm most excited about, and I think from a marketing perspective, oftentimes humans make decisions without any reasonable data, mostly because it just takes a lot of effort to go and get a bunch of data,
Yeah.
and all the systems aren't connected. I think that's the thing on the marketing side that I'm most excited about. My loose feel, and we'll see if I'm wrong about this in the long term, is great marketing is going to be done by humans. Maybe there'll be some tidbits that are inspired by AI systems putting stuff together, but AI systems are going to gather all of this raw material to help you come up with really great ideas. And I think that's the biggest augmentation is I would imagine, and I don't do marketing, but I do a little bit of
Yeah,
marketing.
you do a little bit.
I would imagine most of the effort is not just sitting there coming, or the end-to-end life cycle is not just people coming up with ideas for things that are great marketing campaigns, as an example. It's a whole lot of long tail of other stuff. And I think that other stuff is going to be augmented and supplemented by AI, which is exciting because I think the thing most people are excited about is doing interesting and creative
Mhm.
work and novel work. And I think that's not going to go away.
So you dropped the base of one of the buzzwords of 2024, right? Like augmented. I want to dive a little bit more into that because it's been my experience. And we do consulting with small companies all the way through Fortune 100s. It seems like when people are working with AI, they just want to find the easy button. They want to just punt something to AI and do as little work as possible, right? But when we talk about augmented intelligence, one thing I always try to do is never ask for an output, right? So whether I'm working with, Gemini or ChatGPT or Copilot, I'm turning it more into a consultant, right? I'm turning it into, a Big Four consultant helping me do my work. You talked about vibe coding, there's vibe marketing, there's vibe everything, right? So, how do these things marry each other? This concept of augmented intelligence or, working with the AI instead of handing something off, but then this new trend of vibing everything, right? Going back and forth and working on a feeling. So like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think what you mentioned, Jordan, is like actually the biggest problem in my mind. Back to like the problem with AI in today's moment is not like models aren't good or the technology is not good. It's actually that like building AI products is really hard. And I think part of what makes it hard is if you like actually break down what AI products do today, like you basically have a model somewhere that's sitting on someone else's server, usually not the person who's making the product that you're using. And like the only way to get the model to do anything useful is like you put stuff into a text box. And like today's product experiences, putting stuff into a text box, the onus is on you as the end user to like go get all of the things that would be relevant and helpful in order to like actually put that information into a text box. And it just makes it so that it's such a burden. It's such a burden for users to do that, but also like that is the only degree of freedom that you have. Like ultimately, the only control you have to make the model do something useful for you is putting a bunch of stuff into a text box. So I think a lot about like what the product experiences, the best product experiences are, is like the model just has the context that you have. It can see your screen, it can hear you, you can talk to it, it's sort of connected to the systems that you're connected to. And that way you don't have to do the main limiter of like trying to get the model the right information so that it can actually make good decisions. And if folks have, again, played around with today's AI tools, like if you just ask it some like super generic question, like you're probably not going to be that impressed. Like it's not actually that interesting what the model can do. Like the best outcomes are like you give it all of this nuanced context and data that like the model doesn't have, and then it can come up with something really interesting for you. Again, the challenge is like we just don't have a lot of products that do that. I think that's the edge. If you can, again, today it's like you have to do all that work manually, but I think in the future, like hopefully we'll have products that make that really easy.
Yeah. So I think that maybe early on, right, in the 2022, 2023 days, you could create separation, right, by using the right AI tool or the right AI mode at the right time, and bringing in your data, or if you're one of the companies that figured out RAG early on, oh, you were striking gold. But now I don't think it's like that anymore, right? Everyone out here has access to all the same tools, which is
But are they using them?
correct. Yeah, that's
the hard part.
It is, but like how though should the average marketer, advertiser, how can they get a leg up on everyone else when it's like, oh well, everyone's using the same tools, everyone knows the same things for the most part, or is it just more of education, reps, or what's something that you're seeing in your role that those people that are separating themselves, what have they maybe found out that maybe others haven't?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think just to opine on this point about like everyone is using these tools, I think if you look at, I was talking to the CEO of Casetext, which is a company that Thomson Reuters acquired that does like legal information and stuff like that. And he was talking about how the penetration of AI in legal is like, I think the number is 99% of lawyers have used like a ChatGPT equivalent type of tool. So like massive, like it is deeply ingrained, like they have access to those tools. It's disruptive for their job. They, are trying them, they're talking about them, but they're also in a place where like legal firms have lots of money and they sort of have access to those. I don't think that this is true in the context of marketing. And again, I'm not in the marketing ecosystem, but like there is a huge amount of alpha to be created if you're using these tools, if you have the right systems built around them. Yeah, so I definitely think that that's true. I forgot the original part of your question.
That happens when I just babble on. But I actually want to move on from the first part of that question to ask you something else, because earlier we were kind of going around, talking around the room and, talking about big agencies, right? And I was at the Google conference a couple of weeks ago and, we talked then and I was kind of blown away by some of the like use cases and, some of the biggest agencies in the world. And a lot of people probably don't know are using, AI and they're using it at scale, right? So as someone that's helping build that technology, how do you think, right? So whether we're talking about Google's, VO2 or, for AI video or Imagine 3 for photos, and I'm sure there's other things you all are cooking up, but should we all be looking at how the big companies are leveraging this technology? Should we be looking at those, solopreneurs who are doing great things? Like, who should we be looking at when it seems like, there's so much going on?
Yeah, that's a good question. My push is it's probably the smaller companies that are at the frontier of this. I also think like I would avoid all of the basic use cases. Like, I mean, you can use AI for like writing marketing copy, but like I just have a hard time believing that that's like the most valuable way to be using the technology. Like I think there's so many interesting and different ideas. And like I think we did a bunch of partnerships with Coca-Cola originally, and they were some of the early like largest customers of DALL-E, which was the OpenAI image generation model. And they just had like interesting ideas of like how do you build a marketing campaign that's sort of AI first and AI centric and like leans into the capability and like actually how can you leverage all of this like really interesting stuff that AI is doing to like make that a part of the campaign. On the other hand, my sister does marketing, influencer marketing stuff specifically, and she's telling me that her company strategy is like the complete opposite. They're like, we're all human and there's no AI involved, and like actually it's anti-AI. And like I think that's the other end of the spectrum. Like you could definitely do any of these things. I think there's there's alpha everywhere. And I think that's the cool thing about like as there's a platform shift happening, as the models are getting better every day, like literally every single day, there's a new product that you could potentially be using that would create value and that your competitors aren't using, which is exciting.
So you brought up the Coca-Cola example. Did anyone out here see the campaign that they did around Christmas? Does anyone remember?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So great campaign, by the way. So I'm glad you brought this up. So I actually talked to their head of generative AI about that campaign. And what was interesting that I don't know if a lot of people paid attention to is, they had 18 different humans, right, working on that campaign. A lot of people think, oh, it's, one or two people, kind of pushing a button.
It's AI.
It's AI, right? Yeah. But, even with something like that, I think that was one of the first more visible products or projects that a lot of people saw, hit the mainstream. But even the quality in a couple of months. I mean, we talked about text. I think, the text quality was, good enough, I'd say early on, but the video and the photo quality has maybe lagged behind, but I think we're there now. Yeah. So how much, like, number one, like how much better can it get? Like, my gosh, some of the models now are amazing. And, number two, how does that also change how we should be looking at the future? Because I agree, like, I think writing marketing copy with AI isn't going to, move any needles necessarily, but what about when these systems can, work with all modalities out of the box, right? And create an entire website with a video, with visuals, with that copy, right? So like, can you talk about the quality jump and then what that means, for marketers in the very near future?
Yeah, I think if folks have played around with, I think the two large models that are doing this, Gemini has this like native image editing capability. OpenAI has this as well that they just came out with. And I think if you look at those two examples, the model's really, really powerful. It can definitely do a lot. I think if you look at like what the iteration loop looks like though, it's like actually I tried to do this in ChatGPT and talk to the model and have it sort of generate images and all this stuff and go back and forth. Like it just takes a long time. I'm like kind of bored sitting there for a minute waiting for the model to do something. And it's funny that if you were to send this off to a creative agency to come back to you, it would take days or hours or whatever. So it's definitely faster than other alternatives. But I think that's one of the big things is like maybe the quality isn't like we're kind of at the upper bound of like aesthetic quality. I think we'll see the models get really, really fast, which will make that iteration cycle much, much quicker, which is awesome because it keeps you in the flow of coming up with new ideas and not sitting there waiting or texting or going on Twitter or whatever. I think the other angle of this, back to this all modalities piece, which is as the models take on new modalities, they start to be able to understand things that the current paradigm of models can't. And so this is a great example of like the Gemini models are natively multimodal. So like it's not, there's an idea of like separate image generation models. If folks have heard of Midjourney and Stability and all these other image generation models, those models don't have world knowledge, which means as you try to do like very, very specific things with the models, it becomes like they just don't know. They don't know what it means for, and when, if someone's holding an apple and, if you tell, drop that apple on the ground, those models like don't have that world knowledge. They don't understand physics. They don't understand what would happen. So it's like inherently very limited. Like you would have to then give the full prompt of like the model, the apples on the ground and everything's changed, et cetera, et cetera. So I think more modalities, and I think video is like the sort of last one where the model doesn't natively generate videos. Say like no large scale LLM natively generates videos. I think when it does, like it's just going to have like an even deeper level of understanding of like all the things that we all understand as humans, which I think will be, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, even like I have to shout out like the projects you're working on, like AI, like raise a hand. How many of you in here have used AI Studio before? Google's AI Studio. Okay, a couple people. It's wild to me, right? Yeah. How many, like, who's used ChatGPT? Okay, yeah, almost, yeah. It's everywhere I go. It's about 95% ChatGPT. Hardly no one's using AI Studio.
Which is by design, to be clear. We are building a developer product. We're not building a ChatGPT competitor.
That's true. That's true. However, I will say even non-technical people. So if you haven't already, go check AI Studio out. And I did a very long ranting episode on it like 2 days ago, going over some of the use cases. But I mean, it's really impressive when you talk about multimodality as a default. Like to me, that changes the type of work that humans could or maybe should be doing, right? So as an example, when you talk about, we all know that there's these video generators, right? I can put a text prompt in and get a video out, or put a photo in and get a video out, but AI Studio can ingest video. And that to me is both exciting and real, right? Because if this is being recorded, it's going to know how many times I sipped water, right? It's going to know what my facial expression is like. So, given that you're someone that's helping shape the technology that, developers are building on and really shaping the future of what a lot of these people in here are going to be using, where should they be focusing their time and their skills? It's something I'm always thinking about. Like, as soon as I try to gain a new skill set, I'm like, wait, there's an AI that's way better at this than me now. So where should smart marketers, smart advertisers be focusing their time, knowing how quick and powerful this technology is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just want to make one really quick example of another use case for video. That's top of mind because, again, my sister has this use case.
I thought they were anti-AI though.
They are anti-AI, but apparently she's breaking the mold and using it in her daily job. But she reviews a bunch of like influencer content to make sure that like, what are they saying? Are they brand safe? Are they like, when they do a sponsored deal, do they end up actually like saying things about the sponsored deal? And some of this content is like super, super long and she has to like literally watch all of it. But you can just like drop the model into some AI system and be like, what did they say about our brand? Like, how are they feel? How are they a good representation of our brand, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of interesting things like that. And I think that segues actually perfectly to my general advice, which is, again, I still think you should like find all those horrible, boring things that you don't want to do, like watching cringy YouTube videos from creators, and have AI do that work for you. And like, again, focus on the stuff that you're really excited about. And again, where you can create this like unique differentiated edge. And again, that could be using some other AI tool, to be honest, because again, I don't think that there's enough distribution of these tools in the hands of people. But I think there's so much drudgery in human life to be automated away, so that we all get to do the stuff that we're excited about.
Yeah, all right. So last question before we get into our panel. If you were in everyone else's shoes out there, right, knowing mostly everyone in the audience is a marketing professional, there's probably an equal amount of optimism plus like, oh my gosh, what's my job going to look like, in the next, couple months, couple of years. Where would you be focusing your time and energy and maybe even skill set on? What would you be focused on if you were in the crowd today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would make an agency and I would charge people lots of money and it would be very small. And my lens through this is like, if you look at as sort of the technology becomes really good and brings everyone, levels everyone up, like part of my core belief for the world is like the thing that ends up winning you business and customers and like success and all this other stuff is like your brand, your reputation, and like who you are. And I think like that lens, like both from like a personal marketing story, like those are the things that like AI systems won't be able to do, which is like at scale, people trust X, Y, and Z company or X, Y, and Z person for doing something. The sooner that you can invest in that and the sooner you can make that happen, like the order of magnitude of what humans can do today by themselves is like just going to continue to go up. There's all these threads about like, you know, the first $1 billion company run by a
One
single
person,
person.
yeah.
Like it's probably going to be an agency. I wouldn't even be surprised. Like someone's just going to charge, you know, $1 zillion an hour to one of these large companies as a consultant, and like they're going to have $1 billion company because of that. Like I actually think that's in the near horizon. And yeah, I think to do that, like building a personal brand, going and like that's the thing that AI is not going to be able to replace, is like the persona that you create and what you do in the world. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Unsolicited, I'll answer my own question. I wasn't planning on doing this, but as we get the other panelists up here, I think there's been a lot of this talk on, you know, upskilling and reskilling and skill sharing and, you know, essentially creating like 30 different versions of something skill. But one thing I would do, and I would encourage other people to do, and it's something I've been doing for the last 3 to 4 years, and it's pretty hard. I think you have to actually unlearn things first, right? Because the way the human brain works is, you know, if you get a project, if you get, you know, something that you're supposed to edit, your brain automatically goes through a series of steps that you've done 10, 50, 100 times over. So, you know, people always think, oh, I'm going to sprinkle some AI, you know, in the middle or on the top. I would encourage people like unlearn, start from zero. Blow it all up, right? Like it's almost like I have a list literally on the side of my desk, and it's like, don't do things the old way. Oh, if I need to go, you know, research something, it's like, don't go to google.com, right? I go to gemini.google.com first, right? Because their new deep research 2.5 is bonkers, right? But you really have to, you have to completely unlearn things. You don't just sprinkle AI on the top or, you know, find a good place. Oh yeah, we can put some AI here. I think if you want to be, you know, not just that first, you know, person or the first company that you know, Logan's talking about, but I think if you want to thrive in the new era of AI, you kind of have to unlearn, yeah, right? Especially if you're mid-career like me, someone that's been working for 20 years, 30 years, it doesn't matter. It's hard to unlearn good habits. So that's what I would do, but maybe we can get our panel going.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so who now has the business plan for new career goals? We got one person making $1 billion selling today. I took note of that. New class.
Sure, like, I'm sure you are too. I caught a little bit
Okay.
of your good presentation. You and Paige. Yeah, it's really good.
So
I had to leave right after.
to kick things off, Susan and Kajal, did you want to briefly introduce yourself?
There
There you go.
we go.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Hello, I am Susan Westwater. As Jackie mentioned, my husband and I have an AI consultancy. We are also co-author of 2 books. One of them just recently was recognized as a Berry Book Award finalist by the American Marketing Association Federation. We focus not only on AI and how it can be used in marketing as well as operations, but we also have a specialty in conversational AI, which we've been focused on since 2017.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kajal Jain. I am a product and a marketing consultant. I have my own agency called Habit, and I have been incorporating AI, agentic AI into my processes with my clients.
Okay, I'm gonna start with a question before I go out and see if anybody else has a question. It's kind of a big one. So for anybody that thinks they're way behind in AI, it depends on where you are. Like, we're marketers, we hear about it all the time, but you forget about the average human still is not even using ChatGPT, right? Sorry, or Gemini, right? Android, all the way, Android phone. My students laugh at me for that. But, so anyway, the Wall Street Journal this week reported that McKinsey research shows only 1% of US companies have invested in AI where they've scaled their investment, and 43% are still in a pilot stage. So the question, it's a big question, I know there's a lot, but what is the most critical component to understanding how to scale AI, especially when everyone's doing their own thing, right? So what are some critical components there that we could all use?
I guess I'll kick it off. The first thing of all is, it is when we think of the equation, it's people, process, technology. No offense, but the technology is at the end for a reason. When we are thinking about adopting these things, we have to make sure that the people understand. What we've learned, Scott and I have learned over time, is you can only move as fast as your slowest adopter. So you have to, from that perspective, make sure that you're providing the training and the upskilling. Interestingly enough, there's a study that I actually am a part of that is every year. Only 28% of all people in a nationally representative survey last year were even touching generative AI itself, and that's personal and for work. So it's a matter of getting people to feel comfortable with these types of technologies, then training them and making sure that you're supporting them. And that has to come from the top to the bottom. And that doesn't mean scary emails that say, I will not let you hire anyone unless you tell me how AI works. That's by saying, I understand how these things work and giving people the avenues to share what they're learning and to also have really great guardrails so that they're not getting into situations of I've shared the wrong information or things along those lines.
So yes, everything that Susan said, basically. But what I would suggest is to actually have your internal teams on board on using AI and actually understanding like what is repetitive, what can be replicated by AI. I think it was you that mentioned that your boss was reluctant to AI. Something that I would recommend and something that's worked for some of the companies that I work for is when you're building, so I work on AI agents, building like AI agents, is to try something in-house before you expose it to clients. Get comfortable with it in-house, trial and error in-house before you even advertise yourself as like, we're backed by AI, we use AI technology.
I'd say one of the biggest reason is a lot of C-suite or boardrooms don't go over the why. And that really halts adoption because I think people think of AI, right? Like if you see a story, oh, this company, just gave AI access to, 200,000 employees, something like that, right? And those 200,000 employees are scared to death, right? And they're like, why am I going to learn this thing if it's going to maybe jeopardize my job? So I think adoption has been wrong. I think, it's always been thought of as this top-down directive. I think leaders need to have the why conversation and the what happens when, like what happens when it works, right? Are we going to cut? You see these studies, it's, cuts, customer response time by 70%. It's like, okay, well, are you going to cut 70% of your customer support staff? No one's having those conversations, right? My weird take is, AI is a human, it's a human issue. It's change management. It's not necessarily a technical thing. So that's my 2 cents on why, everyone's investing tens of billions in dollars. But, a lot of the studies are, you might see anywhere from, 1 to 10% of, organizations, using AI from top to bottom. I think they don't, everyone's doing top-down directive, which I think is bad. What about you, Logan?
Yeah, I'll make a quick comment, which is building on this point of this question of why. It's like, I think people have an ill-defined sense of what success looks like. And I think that's my other way of putting it. It's like, if you go to large organizations, like people say they want AI, but like they don't actually know why they want AI. And I think it's hard to do any successful deployment of any technology or any process if you don't actually know why you want it and what success looks like. And specifically on like individual use cases from a success standpoint, like, what does good marketing copy look like? Like that's not an easy question to answer. Like, what is a good marketing campaign? Like, not an easy question to answer. Like, you oftentimes have to like actually go out and do something and validate like an outcome, which takes a lot of time. So I think there's a lot of the trying to define what that is.
Mm-hmm. So on that same vein of the answers, if you flip that, and say, well, what are the mistakes? So we're talking about like, well, here's how you do it. How would you not do it?
First Logan. We'll work our way back.
I mean, I think there's pitfalls everywhere, so I don't know if I have like a good, I don't know if I have a good specific example. Jordan.
Yeah, I can ramble while you. I'm good at rambling. So I kind of on my answer, I pointed out previously what companies were already doing wrong. But I'll say, I'll take it even further, is just training and education, AI literacy, right? Which I understand, the juxtaposition like we're in, like, new models come out every other day. So, companies are being like, whoa, like we're still training on this model that came out 6 months ago. And now you're saying they're taking it away and, it's no longer available. Like, how does that work? So, I get that, but I'll say, I'm shocked at, the random emails or LinkedIn messages I'll get from people at huge companies, asking me questions. And I'm like, I'm using your AI, like, why are you asking me, right? So like even, big companies, you might think, oh, these enterprise companies, Fortune 100s, they have it all figured out. They don't. I think because everyone's racing to squeeze the productivity out before everyone understands like, oh, what's a large language model? How does it work? How do you, it's like, does anyone know what a token is? No, but we need more. We need 1 million of them, right? So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. Was that enough rambling? I can keep going.
Yeah. You're exposing all the dumb emails and LinkedIn messages that I sent to you.
It wasn't Logan. I'm asking him things, so.
I think my sort of quick take on this is the thing that I think folks are doing wrong today, and it's probably not the obvious failure mode, but like not planning for a world where the models and the technology is just like much better than it is today. Like what the rate of progress, the curve that we're on is like only accelerating up and to the right. If you just like simply look at it from a CapEx perspective, like the amount of money that the largest companies in the world have invested into this over the last 3 years and into the next 5 years, like based on what they've released in like public earnings and stuff like that, is dramatically going up and to the right. And you can bet that like the technology progress is going to continue up and to the right, given how much money is being invested in this stuff. So set yourself up for the world and like have that North Star of like the models and the technology 3 to 5x better in the next 3 to 5x years.
What do you think?
I just think a lot of companies don't understand their own workflows and there are a lot of silos. So I think before you implement any AI, you need to audit what you need to replicate, and then pick the right technology.
And I'd also say the worst thing you can do is ban it. There are those that say we have a no, and no offense to your sister's company. But the minute you say don't use something, we're all children at heart, we will go use it. Number one. Number two, we will not share that information with others. It becomes secret society, shadow AI, whatever you want to call it. Get it into the light so that everyone can help each other and then feel that feeling, because going down that path alone means that then you're gonna have one superstar who's not gonna be able to help everyone else replicate. That's gonna be one of the biggest challenges with AI, is because we start at this individual experimental level, and then we move it to the team level, then we move it to the organizational level. In order to be able to do that, we have to allow people to talk, to feel safe, and to feel comfortable. My other piece of advice is, I know this is gonna hurt, we're all marketers, please bring compliance and IT into the very first conversation. I know it's not what we love to do because we get told no a lot. That makes them our partners.
Slow it down.
And it makes it work that way.
Like, let's slow everything down and bring compliance into it, right? But that is an area, the ethics and compliant, and I'm not even sure where you start with that, besides getting them involved and then slowing everything down. Could that be why more companies are not adopting this, because they don't realize that?
I mean, I think we've heard all about, and even just in our work and our anecdotally, of AI councils are wonderful and horrible all at the same time. They can take far too long to make action, or you end up with someone who says, I'm gonna do AI. Next thing you know, they're head of AI adoption. I don't think that's what they meant when they were trying to bring that on. So I think it is that intentional path forward. And that's why then you have to have those folks involved so that you're making an educated decision. Because isn't that part of what we've all talked about, information access, so we can make better decisions. Let's start with the information we have in our hands.
I'm gonna pause here before I continue on, because I will keep going. Questions from the audience? James?
I have a very dumb question, but it's a question I ask myself every day. Parents who work in technology purposely keep technology away from their kids. People who work in marketing and advertising typically purposely keep marketing and advertising away from their kids. I saw a nodding head there, but I'm just wondering, as a parent, how and why would you sort of get your kids to use AI in a way that you think is beneficial to their long-term growth?
I just think overall learning, especially when you're trying to learn a new language. I've used multiple tools to help learn a new language. So it's like the internet. It's there, it's good. Everything's online. It's a good thing. Everything's online, it's a bad thing.
I am a parent. My child knows all about GPTs, knows all about voice search, knows about all the things. We have very strict rules about when he gets to use such things. Poor boy has to write a lot by hand. And that's the problem. We're advertisers and marketers, so we're like the worst. But we spend a lot of time coaching him of like, no, you can just skip that ad. You can do these things, it's okay. We have taught him and we've embraced it, because it's our lives and because we live together, we work, we be hypocrites. But the other part is organizations are expecting that kids coming out of college, I'm gonna call you kids just because I'm old, that's not because you're kids. They're expecting a knowledge base, and we were talking about it before we met on our panel. The more we can help them, the better. We used to always say, we are the beta testers for the next generation. So we owe it to them to be able to use these things responsibly and intelligently. Now that means, we do need to think about how are these things impacting them. Just last night, we were talking at a different panel, and it was the discussion of when your child starts using the AI voice that is default on YouTube videos, how are these things training them? How are these things impacting them? It's an enhancement. They still have to write. There's a neuroscientist who we met who was talking about how our brains are shrinking because of some of the things we're doing with technology. It is that balance and teaching them how to live in that digital world. That is the responsibility we have for them so that they don't end up not necessarily left behind, but working a lot harder than they need to.
I'll have a very simple answer. There won't be a different way to do anything. I'll say that. I still think we're in a period now where if you want to use AI, you have to make a conscious effort to use AI. I don't think it's gonna be like that fairly soon, right? It's obviously with your devices, everything's gonna be AI by default, right? So you can go old school and read books, but I think even interacting in the physical world, right? Like a very small example, if you go to a McDonald's, here in Chicago, you might see a screen, right? You might order from a screen. So think of that, but with conversational AI, right? With interfacial AI, like there's all these, new technologies. If you look at the CES and, what's announced at the Consumer Electronics Show, and, I know 90% of the stuff never goes to market, but I would say in a couple of years, you may not have that option, or the same effort we have to put in now to use AI, you will have to put in that effort to complete a task and not use AI.
Yeah, question.
Actually, I have a question for startups. So how can small startups effectively use AI to hyper-personalize marketing without overstepping user privacy boundaries?
I think the personalization piece is actually easy. I think the thing that's not easy is how do you get user consent and what are the laws and regulations around doing that, which I'm not an expert on, but I think it's actually from a technology perspective, it works. And you could do it in some pretty reasonable ways, but I think the question is do you actually have the means to do it?
I think the other thing too is, why are you personalizing? What is it that you expect? Is it that you want to flex to show them what you know about them? Or are you trying to give them the most relevant pieces of information that relate to them? Those are ways of doing that in a way that is a little bit softer and a little less creepy, and shows them the value. When Google was getting rid of cookies and people were deleting their cookies, I can't tell you how many friends who are not in marketing and tech looked and said, oh my gosh, I am getting so many crappy ads. I don't like any of those products. And it's like, well, yeah, because you turned off cookies, so that's why. So it is making that value of what I'm going to give you if you give me that information and building your reputation of, I will give you those things that are relevant. I like to think of personalization as relevance more than it being of first name, last name, and preferences.
Yeah.
I know you all speak to company leadership in your jobs. Jordan, I'm gonna pick on you, and you speak in the nature of your work, probably speak to an exponential amount of leaders. Just kind of going off of what Logan said about kind of shooting the puck where the tech's gonna be in the future. Our CEO just recently had the tipping point of, he's all in on AI. What have you been doing for the last 6 months, right? So it's like, now he's asking about what have you been doing? When you talk to leadership, what are those sorts of leaders that you're hearing about? Not the ones that are probably on the front end of it or even really evolved, the ones who are just starting to get it. What are you hearing from them about where they see their company, where they see their people, how they see their organization, not just being more efficient, right? But actually doing things that they've never been able to do before.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you're a business owner or you're in leadership of a large organization, if you try to think too far into the future, I think that's extremely dangerous. So I'll give an example. There's a company called WWT. So I did a little work with them, but I also spoke with their CEO. So they're a technology company, so maybe they're a little further ahead of the curve than other companies, right? But speaking with their CEO, super smart guy, his name's Jim Kavanaugh. And he said every day their leadership has a meeting at 7:30 and they start everything with AI, right? And what he said, and I love this, and I'm like, can I steal this and tell others this? And he said, absolutely. Anyone that comes to him with a new product, and they're pretty decent size. They do like $22 billion in revenue, so they're one of the largest companies in the world. If anyone goes to him and with something that's not AI first, it gets immediately denied, right? So now there's been, like in the last week or two, there's been all these waves, right? You saw the Shopify CEO's memo, right? Like you need to justify headcount, right? All those things. But as weird as it sounds, like I think that's a good direction to just say, hey, if you bring something to me, it needs to be AI native, right? Not sprinkling AI on at the end, because we don't know what the technology, no one maybe except Logan, because he's building it, but no one else knows what the technology is going to look like in 3, 6, 9 months. So I don't think you can make plans for, okay, let's skate here. Well, what if there's no puck, right? Everyone wants to skate to where the puck's going. What if there's no puck anymore, right? The rules are being changed. So I would say like a good thing for leadership is you have to switch on that AI native mindset. And I think what needs to happen, and it happened with Jim, he told me about it. I gave you guys my little example when I'm like, wait, I've been getting paid to write for 20 years and this thing's a better writer than me. You have to have that moment where you're like, okay, yeah, this AI that is, these reasoning models that are insanely good and, agentic tool use, you're like, okay, yeah, no human is going to compete, right? Like what Logan was talking about with that curve, no humans are going to compete with that, but we also don't know what that curve's going to look like. So I think you just have to start with, literacy, but also from a leadership standpoint, no top down, but also like, you have to be truly AI native. I know that's like not a hard answer, but it's at least a thought.
Thank you.
Yeah, question.
I like where you're going, and like to the point about like skating to where the puck is going. And Logan, earlier you mentioned a lot of the innovation is happening at like the startups on the frontier level. Just curious, like who are the companies that you guys are watching at? Like, wow, they're doing awesome stuff. Like, gonna keep watching, or like just to see where the industry is heading. Like, what are some examples or names of these companies that stick out to you, and how are they using it?
Good question.
I have a generic answer without endorsing any companies. If folks look at Y Combinator, which is like a startup accelerator that has, it's like the most successful seed stage startup incubator in history. they release a bunch, or I think there's like other people who do reporting about like what the makeup of each batch is, and they do 4 batches a year. And it's actually like a really interesting signal point, like to sort of adjacently answer the question, or like where are the opportunities that like are actually getting a bunch of money invested into them, and like those problem spaces. You can track the Y Combinator batches and see the distribution. And if you look like 2023, 2024, it was like a lot of infrastructure investment that was happening. And now I think this is like completely shifted, where like almost all of the investments at the application layer, it's like people building actual products for end users, and it's because the models have gotten good enough. It's because the infrastructure has gotten good enough. But you should look and dig around and see. It really interesting data.
From a marketing standpoint, real quickly, Domino's is actually, believe it or not, there's 12 different ways to order a freaking pizza.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of those 12 that I just mentioned, one of them is not calling, so that's 13. They are constantly looking at ways of looking at how to shorten the wait time, look at those things. Look at companies that are doing things like that adjacently to using that product as well. They're interesting. Even Nike found a way to use conversational AI at a basketball game to show authenticity of the BB Adapt, as well as then make it easier for someone to be able to purchase it. So that's something to look at as well, of look at some of where some of those brands, and they're not all big brands. Some of them are small and scrappy brands that are finding ways to use this technology to either deliver better customer experience or improve their operations.
Your question.
Yeah, perfect answer to like kind of segue into like the question I also had as well. So I've worked a little bit in some like product development with like AI tools at one of the larger agency networks. And something one of the people I had started like interacting with, one of the things he had said was something he kept on saying was, be careful not to just build shells around AI. So I'm curious, as we're moving from this age of like individuals in a state of content creation, moving towards like, no, users are now content curators. It's about trying to curate the best end product. How would you kind of guide or recommend like, hey, if you're interested in building in the AI space, like, would you recommend building more tool solutions to kind of like, we've been talking about this whole time, like make our day-to-day easier for ourselves and then sharing that with other teams across our networks? Or would you focus on going in a different direction, focusing on like the learning and self-development and, you know, passion projects?
I'll take that one a little bit. I'll start, and then hopefully one of you guys will jump in and save me. Looking at this, so here's going to be a very non-tech answer. Look to where your users are. Look to the audiences that you see. Look to the friction that you're seeing. And then that will guide you as to whether or not you need to provide a solution or if there is a way that you need to provide a service. That is a really simple way, starting with total available market, starting with those problems, then start thinking about how can I solve that really painful problem. When we're even like thinking about using AI, it's like, as Jordan and Logan were talking about, it's what's that thing I hate doing 3 times a day? What are some of the ways, but I mean, that's a really simplified version, but there are other ways too of that proof of are those things that are going to solve those bigger problems, and that find what lights your fire, because you're gonna have to love it, because there's gonna be days you hate it. And so if you start off with a little bit unsure, uncertainty, but I would say going down those paths of where are those solutions that you can have, that will guide you if you're making a product or a service or something along those lines.
So I actually come from a product management background, and I consult with a company called Uptop, and the way we do agile planning now has completely changed. So instead of working with UX UI designers, I vibe code that was mentioned earlier, and we found a way to do it without me breaking the code. So it just makes the process super efficient, because now I can literally talk into a feature, send that code off to an engineer, and they can easily implement that into the entire product if it makes sense. So it's just finding efficiencies in your internal processes.
Yeah, just to hit on this point really quick, I did this yesterday, like instead of going on our production code base, you can literally just take a screenshot, recreate this, the models will literally recreate whatever the product is, and then be like, add this feature, and it literally works out of the box. I love that use case.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think just to hit on this point more broadly, like you should go and build something. Like there's never been a better time in human history to build a startup or build a product or build whatever it is than right now. Like there's massive access to capital. There's a platform shift that's like mid transition. Everything is up for grabs. Like the people who have AI skills have only been doing it for like a year and a half. So like the tons of competition, like it's a great moment to go and build.
Yeah, and one quick thing, I like that you use the word like curation. So for non-builders, since everyone else kind of tackled the dev side, for your average marketer, one thing I've, as someone that now is doing a lot of writing with AI, right? I'm trying to view myself as more of a, and this is going to sound very cringe, but I think people need to have this mindset, especially marketers, as like a tastemaker, as like an orchestrator, right? So now instead of me going to write something that might take 10 hours, now it's like, okay, I've built a couple, little agents, and I send one prompt out. I instantly get 10 different models that give me their response, all async. And I taste make. I'm like, okay, which one of these is best? Okay, now let me go fix the system instructions or the custom instructions on these other ones. So I think marketers, if you start applying that, because I mean, we haven't even talked about like agentic swarms and all these other buzzwords I hate, right? But like, that's what I think a lot of people in this room are gonna be doing, is you're gonna be a curator, you're gonna be a tastemaker, you're going to be an orchestrator, right? Like that's what ultimately I think what we're gonna be able to do. Think like, I still remember, sitting around, in a marketing room with, 7 or 8 people from all different disciplines and, just talking to them, right? And it's like, okay, we should do this with the design and, photography, we should do this, right? It's like, I kind of think it's going to be like that. Like we're going to be talking to a series of agents and hopefully they're trained on your company's data and you've given them examples of what's good and bad. But I think that's a good way to think of it is curation or, orchestration.
You have a question back there.
Yeah, I was kind of actually going off of what you just said. What kind of careers might arise, you think, from AI? Like new roles, new titles? Has there been any of that happening? I mean, I'm sure it's happening now, but like title wise, and like if you're looking to get into that industry, say you're marketing, it might change into like have your marketing background and then using AI. About the career industry, so the career, like any new careers that might come out of it.
Yeah, I think there will definitely be new careers. I think it's harder to project that. I think the like easy answer to the question is like everyone's going to be AI assisted. So like all the problems that people are doing right now, augmented by AI, probably the best outcome for the world. But there's also like prompt engineering is like the fake quintessential job that no one actually has that was like the job of the future that there's like 10 prompt engineers at 3 companies that I think it's like that job is like a useful like transitory thing, which is like you're basically just helping upskill people around you. That's not clear that that's going to have to be the thing. Like ideally in the long term, like the models and the products get good enough that they just like do a lot of that prompt engineering for you. So I think like that is a career path. I think is a finite duration. But I don't think a lot of things like I would honestly guess 10 years from now, people are doing a lot of the same looking jobs. They just have a bunch of really great tools and they happen to be powered by AI.
So we have time for one more question from somebody we haven't heard from in the back.
Oh, hi, thanks for doing this. I guess one thing I'm really worried about, I know we're in this like constant quest for like using technology for efficiency and like optimization and everything, and like how do we go back to like humanity? I feel like we're losing the sense of humanity. And like for example, I had a friend, I saw her at an event like 2 nights ago. Yesterday I got this LinkedIn message kind of from her that literally like was not, I mean, it said the wrong thing in it, and I knew it wasn't personalized because like she wouldn't have said that. So it like almost made me feel like it was a worse experience, that like, oh, you didn't even care to send me like a real message versus like you sent me this thing. So I don't know, can you talk about like even with like social media, I feel like theoretically this is supposed to improve how we like chat with our friends, but I'm like rarely do I get phone calls from my friends, like and things that I would, what was that?
I blame COVID.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying like I feel like we go down this like path where I'm like, what's the end to it? Like I used to like bounce ideas off of my friends based on like, hey, I have this problem, like what would you do with this? And instead it's like, oh, we need to go to one of these tools. Like, do you have any thoughts on, or
I have thoughts.
My sort of quick worldview on this is the value of humans is on this exponential up to the right curve. Like I think in a world where intelligence is ubiquitous and it's at the push of a button, on demand, et cetera, like it's everywhere around you. And then it's just like all of the things in human life where you just like becomes the default, becomes normal, you tone it out. And you're like, what do I actually like? I like spending time with humans. They're pretty great. And like, it's a really authentic, deep, relationship that's like biologically encoded into us. And I don't think AI tools and systems are going to replace that. So I'm hopeful for your fear. I think like it's it's hopefully gonna be less of a real problem.
I pray for my Gen X students to get out and network, right, Sue? James, like,
Touch grass.
go talk to people.
I was just gonna add, I know you asked like from a friend perspective, but I think the way people interview is going to change. I think we're gonna be looking more for soft skills and like having that personal brand. So just focusing, I mean, from a personal perspective, like focusing, making an extra effort of being more personable and being authentic. I think AI is actually pushing us to do that. I know it's not helpful for your friend, for what your user experience with the LinkedIn message, but I feel like if I hire in the future, I'm gonna be looking for more personable skills.
Awesome.
One quick thing I want to have, because you know I can't leave brand out of it. So brand is going to be different. We have been thinking of brands in a three-dimensional fashion. There is now this concept of a 4D brand. What happens when my brand talks? Like for real, not voice and tone as a metaphor. What does it sound like? What are the musical cues? What are those audio cues? Those are all things. Now, right now, what you're experiencing and with your friend is trying to figure out what is her brand and how then does she train that model to be able to sound like her. But we also see that in the marketplace as well. And that's either good or bad. I mean, I'll admit, because what I will do is I will actually tell GPT to please edit this for clarity and my tone. And then I put a couple of my blog posts in my book in there just to say, so it sounds like me. But then I still have to go through and read it. We are going to see those missteps where something comes through as generic. We're also going to see that on the brand level as well, of major brands, of understanding, hey, I no longer have control of the conversation. I no longer have control of a lot. How do I show up? How do I show up authentically? And how do I show up consistently? So those are going to be the things that then are going to be our reference points that make us know that something is official or that it's right.
Thank you. And what a great segue that is, because we now have an opportunity for you to actually build relationships and talk to people. There's a reception for the business people on the 11th floor here. It's called the DePaul Cafe. So you come out of the elevators, go towards the windows, and we have appetizers and drinks there. So we invite you all to the 11th floor, please, and we will continue the conversation there. Thank you.
No, I have to get your shirt. There's actually